On one side, Patrick Jane, a man who can walk into a room and read people within seconds. On the other, Dexter Morgan, a man who spends his days analyzing blood and his nights creating it. One is a mentalist, the other is a serial killer. Both are observers, both are manipulators, and both are extremely good at hiding who they really are. But if these two ever realized who they were dealing with, who would see through the other first? Let's find out. Imagine Patrick Jane being brought in as a consultant for the Miami Police Department. Jane does what Jane always does. He observes. Not the crime scene, the people. He watches how detectives move, how they speak, who looks nervous, who looks too confident, who is trying too hard to appear normal. And then he notices Dexter. Quiet, polite, helpful, almost forgettable. Exactly how Dexter wants people to see him. But Patrick Jane has a problem with people who are too normal. Because Jane knows something most people don't. Nobody is completely normal. Everyone leaks information. Through their eyes, their hands, their voice, their breathing. And Dexter is hiding a lot. Jane doesn't accuse Dexter. That would be stupid. Instead, he watches. He notices that Dexter rarely reacts emotionally.
Kill one man and you're a murderer. Kill thousands, a conqueror. Kill them all and you're a god. Does it sound to you like our guy has a narcissistic personality disorder? A classic god?
I've had time to think about this, Morgan. I don't fit that code you were talking about, do I? At first, I thought the butcher only went after criminals. Me.
To certain things. He notices how comfortable Dexter is around blood. He notices how quickly Dexter understands crime scenes. And most importantly, he notices something that doesn't quite fit. Now, none of this proves anything, and Jane knows that, so he does what he does best. He creates a situation, a test. Jane asks Dexter a seemingly meaningless question, then another, then changes the subject, then comes back to the first question. He's not listening to Dexter's answers, he's watching Dexter's reactions, but Dexter notices. And that's where things get interesting, because Dexter isn't just being observed, he's observing Jane too. Dexter has spent years pretending to be normal. He knows how people behave. He knows how to lie. He knows how to
It's a holdover from the last ice age when food was scarce and men had to work together to take down such a large beast. Those who
is a highly esteemed feeder school to some of the finest Ivy League universities in the country.
Harvard, here we come.
And as I'm sure you know, we have a very rigorous admission process.
And I think I just found it.
Come on, Dexter. It's hammer time.
I have control his emotions. So when Jane starts paying attention to him, Dexter notices immediately. And Dexter realizes something important. Patrick Jane isn't investigating him like a detective. He's investigating him like a psychologist. That's much more dangerous. A detective wants evidence, Jane wants a reaction, and behavior is something Dexter has spent his entire life controlling. But controlling your behavior isn't the same as controlling someone else's perception of it. Now the game begins. Jane starts testing Dexter. Dexter starts testing Jane. Neither man openly admits that he knows what's happening, and that's what makes this matchup so dangerous. Because the first person to reveal that they are suspicious loses the advantage. Jane might ask a harmless question, but underneath that question is another question. Why did Dexter answer that way? Why did he hesitate? Why did he look there? Why didn't he react? Dexter does the same thing. He studies Jane. What does he want? What does he know? Who is he told? And most importantly, how much does Jane actually suspect? Because Dexter has dealt with investigators before, but Jane is different. Jane doesn't need to know everything, he only needs to know enough. Jane's biggest weapon isn't intelligence, it's observation. He can notice tiny inconsistencies that other people completely ignore. A nervous gesture, a forced smile, a change in someone's voice, a person standing in the wrong place, a sentence that doesn't make sense.
Public binding spell that I can show you, and it's similar. What is your name?
What's to you?
Kimball Cho.
Hey.
This is God speaking.
I guess that's about it, yeah? You don't like being asked questions, do you? The team as a whole seems to have a problem with that.
Is that a question?
If you're gonna jump, make sure to dive. Head first.
Hey, Jane.
From that height, you'll just shatter bones and suffer massive internal injuries.
And Dexter is extremely careful, but he isn't invisible. Every time Dexter interacts with Jane, he risks giving something away. But there is another problem. Jane is unpredictable. He might spend 30 seconds joking around and then suddenly ask a question that completely changes the conversation. Dexter can't easily predict him, and unpredictability is dangerous when your survival depends on planning. But Dexter has an advantage Jane doesn't: preparation. Dexter doesn't rely on improvisation when he can avoid it. He plans, he researches, he waits, he removes variables. And if Dexter becomes convinced that Jane is a genuine threat, he doesn't have to beat Jane in a psychological argument. He only has to make Jane disappear. That's the difference between them. Jane's weapon is information. Dexter's weapon is finality. And that creates the biggest question of this entire matchup.
Seems to be working.
I just found these on my desk with the note. Torque, try these lifts. That funny to you?
I got nothing to do with that, man.
Just because I wear lifts, you think I'm a joke?
These are real funny, man.
Bring it up!
Would Dexter act before Jane could expose him? Or would Jane realize what Dexter was planning before he ever got the chance? Jane eventually decides to test Dexter with something more dangerous: information. He deliberately lets a piece of information reach Dexter, something only the killer should know. Then, he waits. No confrontation, no accusation, just silence. Dexter sees the trap. But here's the problem. If he reacts, Jane learns something. If he ignores it, Jane might learn something anyway. This is where Jane is at his most dangerous. He doesn't necessarily need Dexter to confess. He just needs Dexter to make a decision, because every decision reveals something, and Jane knows that. But Dexter isn't going to sit there and play defense forever. He starts looking for Jane's weaknesses, because everyone has one, even Patrick Jane. Jane is confident, maybe too confident. He likes controlling conversations.
They made a mistake counting the tigers. There's still one on the loose.
We'll meet you back at the CBI.
Okay.
You are a cool customer. You think you can outrun a tiger?
I don't have... Showtime.
Oh my goodness, something is tickling my toe. Oh, there it... Where did that... Oh! Where did that come from?
Where did what?
He likes being the smartest person in the room, and sometimes he enjoys playing with people more than he should. Dexter could use that. He could feed Jane false information. He could create a fake lead. He could make Jane believe he's getting closer while actually leading him somewhere else. And suddenly, Jane might not be investigating Dexter anymore. Dexter might be investigating Jane. Eventually, there would be a moment where both men know. Jane knows Dexter's hiding something. Dexter knows Jane knows, and neither one can pretend anymore. This is the moment where everything comes down to one question: who breaks first? Jane could try to provoke Dexter, make him angry, make him nervous, make him reveal something, but Dexter has spent years learning how to hide his emotions. Dexter could try to intimidate Jane, but Jane has faced dangerous people before, and fear isn't something Jane is unfamiliar with. So what happens next? That's where things become impossible to...
What is...
Harry and Doris Morgan did a wonderful job raising me. But they're both dead now. I didn't kill them.
My heart beats for those two kids. So if you or that skinny try to screw with what's mine, I swear to God, I'll...
To predict. If Jane gets enough time, he could potentially expose Dexter. He doesn't necessarily need to catch him in the act. He only needs to connect enough inconsistencies until Dexter's perfect disguise starts falling apart. But if Dexter gets enough time, he could potentially remove the problem entirely, because Jane's greatest strength is also his greatest weakness. He gets close, very close, and getting close to Dexter could be exactly what gets him killed. So, who wins? Patrick Jane or Dexter Morgan? Honestly, there isn't an easy answer. If this is a battle of observation, Jane has the advantage. If it's preparation, Dexter has the advantage. If it's manipulation, both are dangerous. And if it becomes physical, the entire game changes. So I'm not choosing a winner. That's your job. Could Patrick Jane expose Dexter before Dexter could stop him? Or would Dexter realize what Jane was doing and make him disappear first? Let me know your answer in the comments. And most importantly, tell me why. Because the best argument wins the debate. And if you have two characters you want to see go head to head next, Drop them in the comments.